Almost all matter you see feels solid, but physics says it's mostly empty space. Welcome to another episode of Physics Points to Spirituality. According to spiritual teachings, everything that exists is a kind of dream. The entire world of form is a dream. It is something between reality and unreality. It is a little real because it exists, but also a little unreal because it is an illusion. That is the meaning of the Hindu concept of Maya. In the West, the film Matrix was created based on this idea, which became very successful because we all sometimes feel this way, even though the film Matrix took it too extravagantly and pushed it to extremes. So what our mind perceives is, according to spiritual teachings, an illusion. And this is what physics is moving toward. For example, through the observation that what we perceive as the solidity of matter arises from electromagnetic interactions, while most of the volume of matter does not consist of solid substance in the classical sense. Matter appears solid, but most of its volume is not occupied by localized particles. So in this sense, the solidity of matter as we see it is an illusion. Let us look at what we would see if we gradually magnified some matter. For example, our body. As long as we look at a scale larger than the wavelength of visible light, solidity appears real. But if we look at scales smaller than the wavelength of visible light, we find that matter is not continuous and consists of atoms with large regions where no particles are localized. Matter is formed from atoms. According to modern physics, atoms consist of a very small, dense nucleus, surrounded by a quantum electron cloud, and most of the volume of an atom corresponds to regions where no particle is localized at a given moment. In that region, there are electromagnetic fields describing interactions between electrons and nucleons. For example, in the hydrogen atom, approximately 99.9999999999996% of its volume corresponds to the region between the proton and the electron. You can approximate this using a simplified model of atoms and atomic nuclei as spheres. The diameter of atoms is approximately 10 to the negative 10 meters, and the diameter of the atomic nucleus is approximately 100,000 times smaller. The electron does not have a well-defined classical size, but behaves as a quantum object. In this electromagnetic field between the electrons and nucleons in the atomic nucleus, interactions are mediated by photons in the framework of quantum electrodynamics. And even the nucleons and electrons, which occupy a very small part of the conventional volume of atoms, are excitations of underlying quantum fields. According to string theory, which is a theoretical framework that attempts to unify quantum theory and general theory of relativity, quarks, which form nucleons and also electrons, could be described as different vibrational modes of more fundamental objects, sometimes informally compared to tiny vibrating strings. String theory is not experimentally confirmed. The theory of supersymmetry is also not experimentally confirmed, but it has not been ruled out. And does physics explain why matter appears solid to us, even though it consists almost entirely of regions where no particles are localized? Yes. It is because our visual perception depends on photons of visible light interacting with matter. The wavelength of visible light is large compared to atomic scales, so light does not resolve individual atomic structures. Instead of passing freely through matter, photons interact with the electromagnetic fields of electrons and are absorbed, scattered, or reflected. We can imagine this in a simplified way using a ball representing a photon bouncing off black dots representing atoms. If the distance between the dots is smaller than the effective size associated with the interaction, the ball will not pass through them. We can throw it at any point, and it will bounce back from every point. This creates the impression that what is behind it is continuous, because it is as if every point reflects the ball. But in reality, the reflection is not due to solid contact with tiny particles, but due to electromagnetic interactions between the photon and the electron cloud. The ball analogy works only as an illustration of limited resolution and interaction scale, not as a literal physical picture.
Finally, let us also mention a quote by Arthur Eddington. "The stuff of the world is mind stuff." And let us also recall Albert Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared, which shows that mass is a form of energy. And is energy solid? Probably not.
What do you think? Is reality truly real, or just a kind of illusion? Write it in the comments.